Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today I want to talk to you about something that is pretty important to me and I think to most of this audience. I want to talk to you about the issue of the LGBTQIA+ community and equality. Recently, it feels like there's an opinion out there that those in the queer community have enough freedoms and enough equality, and so it is time to stop pushing for more equality. It's a weird sentence, it's a weird sentiment, and we are going to get into it. But first, I just need to ask you to go ahead and subscribe, to comment if any of this strikes a chord in you, to like the video so the algorithm gods will pick it up and send it out to more people, or to share it to whoever you think might really benefit from hearing it. Thank you. The legal definition of the word equality is having all of the same rights, privileges, immunities, and liability of duties as everybody else. The number one issue we are still currently facing today is the problem with equality. Things are still not equal. They are better, but better doesn't mean right. And that's what I want to talk to you about. In 2016, there was a study that found that over 50% of straight people thought that those in the LGBTQIA+ community had equal rights. As long as there are states that are permitted to fire people or deny them housing or harm people in general based on their sexual orientation or gender identity, means that things are not equal. With the problems we are currently facing in our country when it comes to quality of care decisions for people who are impacted by that thing that's impacting so much of our country right now, it has become more and more evident within our community that if you are not in a relationship that the law formally recognizes, it is unlikely that you are going to be permitted at your partner's side the way that a married heterosexual couple is. During Pride Month this year, a certain big boat sailing company put a rainbow behind their logo. This company has a long history of, with its employees, supporting same-sex marriage, domestic partnerships, and over again on those comments on that Instagram post, I saw these things where people were saying,
"Stop shoving it down our throats."
I don't have anything against gay people. I just don't have to see it all the time.
All of those things. And I'll admit it got the better of me at first, and I engaged in the conversation. And I said things like, if this is shoving it down your throats, then I want some retribution of some sort for the decades of my life that I was forced to have heteronormativity shoved down my throat. To which I was told I was being ridiculous and blah, blah. Eventually, I just deleted my comments because it wasn't worth it to have the conversation with someone on the internet. So now I'm making a video about it on the internet. So the first and most obvious way that we are not currently equal is representation. If things were equal, if representation for heterosexual and non-heterosexual relationships were equal, no one would feel like anything was being shoved down their throats, which becomes the single greatest argument for the fact that it is not equal representation-wise. Another way that things are not equal is healthcare. There is no reason in 2021, with all of the things that we understand about people and identity and reality and a person's experience being their own experience and not anybody else's, there is no reason why today any queer person should have to qualify to their doctors that they are queer. There is no reason that a woman who only has sex with other women should go into a doctor's office and have to qualify that to someone when they ask, is there any way you're pregnant? I know these things are happening. Some of these things have happened to me. I know some of these things have happened to you. And the frustration is that it is still up to those in the queer community to qualify it for professionals. It breaks my heart when I get emails or messages from people that ask, as a therapist, if I'm affirming or not. You should never have to ask that. As a therapist, it should be just as normal for me to work with queer people as it is for me to work with cis-het people. There is no reason that should be any different, and there is no reason that people should not just be able to enter into those relationships and conversations and find the match therapeutically and be able to move forward. I don't understand why we are still okay with making it so that people in the queer community have to jump through hoops to get remotely the same level of care that straight people get on a regular basis. access in general, which is where healthcare actually falls under, is problematic beyond healthcare. The fact that we have states that have now made it okay to deny someone employment or housing because they identify within the queer community or because they have a marriage or a partner that does not fit the cishet narrative is appalling. And these are things that the majority of cishet people do not ever have to actually think about. We have yet to have a president in our country that will come forward and say marriage, heterosexual marriage, which is, the marriage they would be talking about from that office. Marriage is a state issue, and whether or not marriage certificates are sent out to male-female marriages, whether or not they're allowed to have their marriage license is up to the state. So we should change it from a federally protected entity to a state entity. Understand, when I say federally protected entity, I mean it is recognized as legal everywhere. It is recognized as valid everywhere. The idea that we went so long where heterosexual marriages had money back on taxes and protections for them, for each other as property owners and as partners in life, the things that one of them had, the other one had also. To think that we went that long with that many people fighting for same-sex couples to be able to have that is insane to me. The fact that it was in 2016 and 2017 and 2018 that we were also having the conversation about whether or not same-sex marriages would continue to be recognized on a federal basis, or if it was going to be state by state again, is another example of why we cannot say things are equal. Because unless all marriages were in jeopardy, none of the marriages should have been in jeopardy. And then you have people who tell queer people, oh, at least you can get married in some places. So let me talk about what this does to those in the queer community, specifically from the time that you realize that you're part of the queer community and on. Typically, it results in things like a general mistrust of other people. When you don't know if the people you talk to are safe, you're going to hold everyone at arm's length until you've had a chance to see how they respond to things, and then you can decide if they're safe to show them who you are. Some of us go the other route and we just live all of it out there. But for a lot of people, that is still a defense mechanism. The holding it in or the throwing it out there are both options for keeping everyone else at bay. Because the people who are going to respond oddly to you and who you are, if you're throwing it out there, they're just going to stay away from you altogether. Or the people you keep at bay until they're safe to let in, then you don't have to worry about letting in the wrong people. They are both options pretty equally employed by those in the queer community to make sure that the people around them are safe. And I'm not just talking about emotional safety. There's a very real physical safety concern for people. So there's that. There's also defensiveness that takes hold. When you hear people say things like,
oh, well, being gay is a choice, or
God didn't mess up, so the sex that he gave you is the sex that you're supposed to be.
Those kind of things can be really, really triggering for people, and the defensive nature is completely understandable. When you are constantly hearing, and when I say constantly, I mean ever, really, with any kind of repetition, hearing that who you are is believed to be unnatural in any way, that is going to make you defensive. Your defenses are going to kick in because it keeps you safe and it pushes those harmful people away. It's also going to make you fearful on some level. It's going to make you fearful of your instincts and who you are, because even the most evolved of us and the ones who've been living into this truth freely and openly for a long time are still going to have those in the back of our head questions, because we still live in a heteronormative society. We live in a society that expects that if you're not heterosexual, you are weird or you are outside of the norm. Because of that, you have an instinct to question your instincts. So that's where a lot of that comes from. People like,
do I just want to be their friend, or do I actually like them?
I hear often, especially people who identify as bisexual, that they're wondering if they're just lying or if that's really who they are, because the press you hear about bisexuality isn't super flattering a lot of the time. And it makes people wonder if that's so invalidated, maybe I'm not that person. That comes from this inequality. That comes from living in a place, any place, where equality is something to strive for, but it's just not there yet, and it feels all the time out of reach. Equality does not mean validity, but it can feel like it does, right? It can feel like there is something validating about you and who you know yourself to be when all rights and privileges are secured on the same basis as everyone else. Inequality is still a huge problem in our country, and anybody who doesn't understand that needs to take another look. So for those of you who have been feeling out of sorts, have been feeling the weight of inequality, I need you to understand that you are not imagining things. That it is real, it is out there, and it is taking its toll on all of us. And it is my hope that it is not forever. That's all for today. Join us next week. We'll be reacting from a therapeutic perspective to the movie Pray Away. If you haven't watched it yet, please go ahead and do so. It's on Netflix. Watch the movie. We're talking about it next week. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great week.